Trust me when I say this, I did not have my greatest success in this business until I focused on one strategy and one strategy only and put all my effort into that strategy for a period of time. So one of the biggest regrets us house flippers have is selling the houses that we actually flipped. But then again, today I'm going to show you the BRRRR that got away. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. Now, I am a recovering house flipper. I've literally flipped over 600 homes in my career over the last decade. And while doing that, I learned a technique called the BRRRR method: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And I immediately, as soon as I realized I could have been doing this whole time, regretted one major thing, and that was selling most of the properties I flipped. Now, today I'm going to show you guys one of the biggest deals that we let get away from us. So what happens if I flipped it? Now, when I flipped this house, the final numbers were I bought it for $177,000. I rehabbed it for $68,900. So we were $3,900 over budget. Budget $65. We spent $68,900. Why? Honestly, it had a lot to do with all the trash that kept being shown up on this property as we're cutting back vegetation. Now, we sold it for $322,500. So that's $7,500 more than what we projected. But here's the trick. We actually didn't sell it for $322,500 more than what we projected because we did a seller concession for $7,500 back to this, we did a seller concession, yes, for $7,500 back to the buyer. Now, seller concessions don't happen so much nowadays in 2021 because the market's so hot. But back when I sold this property, which I think was early 2017, we definitely had to do concessions because that's what it was like pre-2018. So we did concessions. So we netted $315 on the actual sale. Now, we were paying 2 points and 10% for the finance cost to a private money lender this whole time on the property. And we held the property. The rehab took us about 3.5 months to get done, but we had to put it on the market, sat on the market for about 2-3 weeks, and then it took a little over 45 days to close on the actual property itself. So it put us about 6 months of hold time. Now, with 6 months of hold time after all selling costs, real estate commissions, holding costs, blah, 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 real estate, rehab, blah, 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 we netted $26,471. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, hey, that kind of sucks, right? Well, for us, if I made at least 25 grand to 30 grand on a flip, just put it in the pile and keep on moving. And that's what I did. We got done with the deal. I put it in the pile, kept on moving. We had about, I think at that time, we had about 18 or 19 other projects going on, and I was just flipping machine. That's what I did. That's what I've done. However, what if we BRRRR'd this property? Now, in this particular deal, 1 week before closing, 1 week before we sold the property, we realized what we could have done to this property. We could have BRRRR'd this property, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, and gotten most of our money back out of the deal and also still cash flowed. But the reason why we looked at doing the BRRRR method was because we realized we could have developed this land. So let me show you guys something real fast on what I mean by that. So take a look. So this is that house plus the lot. I told you guys it was almost 2.5 acre property on this parcel. So the house is actually here. You can see the blue line. I just highlighted red for you guys here really quick. The little house here, the well over here, and this is the big empty lot sitting here. Now there's another house over here chilling, but take a look. 2.5 acres, sit in the middle of a subdivision. Some of these have a little bit bigger lots. Some of these have much, much smaller lots. Now, none of us looked at that in reality until one day we were messing around on Google Earth and we just looked it up, and we looked at this and we said, wait, this is a big lot here sitting in the middle of this subdivision here. What are we missing? So we sent it to some developer friends of ours, and they said to us after looking at it, they're like, oh, the zoning on this thing is moderate density single family. Now, don't look that up for yourself, right? When it comes to your area, every city municipality has a different zoning code that means different things. Moderate density single family might not be a thing where you live. So just keep that in mind for all you naysayer out there, commenters that I find out there. Anyways, don't do that. So, but no, in my area, in this particular part where the city this property was in, moderate density single family said that you can build 6 single family homes per 1 acre. Now, this is a 2.5 acre property. So if you just do the basic math on that, that's 12 properties for 2 acres. And with another half acre, that's another 3, that's 15 properties. Now, it doesn't work that way with basic math because that would be, you would be taking every single inch of this entire 2.5 acres, which doesn't work that way. Once you go through, in our case, we went through our developer friends who sent it to their civil engineer. They said we can get pretty much 10 houses on this lot if we took it all the way from raw land to finished lots. Now, what does that mean? That means you take dirt this dirt here, right, and spend a bunch of time and a bunch of money, and you develop 10 finished lots that have utilities, asphalt, all that great stuff that makes it on there so that a builder could come in or yourself and put real houses on this property. You go from 1 house to 10. Now, what does that mean numbers wise? I'm going to get into that in a second. Now, if I sat on this property, I flipped houses, and I sat on this property for X amount of months, X amount of years to possibly get it to a point to where we can build and develop it, I'm going to hope that I can cash flow on this property. So let's go over the numbers very quickly about what this property would have been if we BRRRR'd it instead. So I want you guys, when we go through this, here's another pro tip. What lens are you viewing these properties through? What lens do you see real estate through? Are you me that saw properties only as a house flipper? Are you somebody that's a landlord that buys only MLS deals? Are you a house developer? Are you a builder? Are you a multifamily investor? Are you commercial property? Every person views things very differently in this deal, in this business, and we even view what we view differently from other people, right? So it's fascinating how this business works. So that said, what lens do you view it in? And for me, I saw it as flips. But if we view this as a BRRRR instead, don't forget about the development. If we view this as a BRRRR instead, what could have happened? So with a BRRRR, every great BRRRR must be a good flip first. Now you can have a good flip that's not a good BRRRR, but every BRRRR must be a good flip first in order for it to be a BRRRR. I'm going to stand by that forever. This was a great flip, which means it could possibly be a good BRRRR, but it also has to cash flow. So let's go over those numbers. If we would have instead refinanced this property and it appraised for $322,500, which is what technically we sold it for, then we would have gotten a cash out refi for 75% loan to value. Now, loan to value just means 75% of whatever it appraised for. So loan to value. So 25% equity, 75% loan to value. That puts us at a $242,000 loan. Now, back then, we probably could have gotten a 4.5% to 5% interest rate. Let's just call it 4.5% at this time. And we would have had a principal, interest, taxes, insurance, PITI, payment of $1,500 a month. Now, pulling comps back then for rents, because we actually did look at it before we closed because we were trying to find a way to get out of the deal back when we were closing this, but we couldn't legally. We knew we could rent it out for at least $1,800 a month. Now, today, this exact same property would probably be renting out for about $2,500 a month in that area at least, but we would have rented out for $1,800 a month back then. So doing the refi, we would have cash flowed $300 a month on this deal, but we would have had to leave some money into the deal. Now, if you remember, we bought for $177,000. We also had to pay some points for that property. We paid $4,700 in points to the lender that we borrowed from. We had $65,000 budget to pay back for the lender, and we also had $11,000 in holding costs roughly. Now, going through everything with holding costs plus the extra rehab money and everything like that, we would have had $258,000, give or take, left into this deal before we refinanced. If that was the case, then refinancing a $242,000 loan, we would have had to leave right around $18,000 into the deal and not get that money back. So if we're only getting $300 a month in cash flow before even property management expenses, then we would have only netted a 20% annualized ROI on this rental. But here's the magic of the BRRRR method. If I flipped it, yeah, I would have made almost 30 grand. But keeping it leaves that equity into that deal. So you don't just get that $300 a month cash flow before property management expenses and all the great stuff. And when we do a BRRRR, for those of you guys listening, we don't include capital expenditures and so forth for the first few years just because we already fixed up the entire house. So that said, maybe we would have got a 20% ROI annualized on that $300 a month, but we also would have that $80,000 of equity into the deal before all closing costs and selling costs that happen by keeping this property with 25% of our equity left into the deal and a 75% LTV loan. So sure, when you go to sell it, you're going to pay a bunch of fees, expenses, and so forth later on the back end. But the truth be told, you have almost $80,000 of equity into this property if it appraised for $322,500. That said, BRRRRs are awesome. So leave 18 grand in to get a possible 20%. Some people wouldn't do that. But if you knew the last step, going back to that picture, that you had the opportunity to put 10 homes on this property, but in order to do that, you had to sit on this property for, call it 2 years, sit on this property for 2 years while you went through the phase to get it to finished lots, right, to be able to later build on this property. Then if it took you 2 years to do all that stuff, going from raw dirt to finished lots, but you were still cash flowing $300 a month the whole time it was going through permitting and development and so forth, then would you have kept it knowing that? I can tell you right now, I definitely would have kept this property knowing that. So how do you view real estate investing? So what do those numbers actually mean at the end of the day if we would have developed this property instead? But first, one more thing. I looked up on Zillow on this property. So put this up there right now. Look at this number. $533,500 is what Zillow says this exact house is worth today. If I kept this house for just those years that we had it, then I would have still not only got that $300 a month cash flow, this house would be worth almost $533,000 right now as a BRRRR for me. And if I sold it without even having principal buy down for the mortgage itself, I would net $252,000 before taxes on this property at a long-term capital gains tax rate, just by keeping it. So just knowing that, I should have kept this property. So one of the biggest regrets us house flippers have is selling the houses that we actually flipped. But then again, flipping the houses gives us the capital today that we have, as long as we're reinvesting it and so forth. So what does it mean if we would have developed it though? If this was about 2.5 acre property and we could have gotten 10 houses out of it, right now, brand new builds in that area are going for $600,000 a piece. So if we would have done that today and been done with it today, that's almost $6 million in value to be able to get to the point to where you have 10 single families on there. Now, does that mean that you don't spend a lot of money? Yes, you spend a lot of money developing raw land into actual into actual buildable lots. Finished lots is what they're called. And then you have to spend a lot more to actually build the houses. So I just got done with the 20 lot development, which maybe one day I'll do a video for you guys on if there's enough demand for it. But we did 20 lot development that we bought the dirt for $490,000. And then it took us about $1 million to get it to 20 finished lots. So there's about $1.5 million into that. So just to get to that point on a $490,000 raw dirt property. Now this was a $177,000 purchase for the raw dirt, but would it have taken us over $1 million to get to finish? Probably not, because it's only 10 lots. So let's just call it cost $1 million to get it to finished lots. And then cost a few million as well on top of that to get the actual 10 homes built. If that was the case, you're still netting millions on the deal. Now, all those factors and all those numbers will take me a much, much longer video for you guys to be able to break down how you take raw land into finished lots, as well as the scenarios that go into actually getting into buildable lots and putting a builder onto them and actually building the actual 10 homes themselves and all the stuff that goes into it. But some good rough numbers for you guys to realize to take raw dirt, especially this, to turn them into finished lots, is going to take you between 12 and 18 months minimum, especially today, to get them to actually finished lots in value. So now, if that's the case, if I was netting $300 a month cash flow on this property, and it took me about 18 months to get to the point to where I can get the finished lots, that's great. I was having my bills paid the whole time, and I had conventional financing on it or asset-based financing to pay the bills throughout it. Now, if it also took me some time afterwards to go build the houses, of course, that's another whole layer of how to structure finances and how to get it to where you can build the homes, sitting on them and so forth when it comes to other lenders and banks that could finance you for construction costs. But if I would have kept this, how many millions would it be worth today? How many millions could I have actually kept if I actually built this myself? Or maybe I definitely would have made a hell of a lot more than the $26,000 we netted on the deal. And I believe this property is one of my biggest regrets of missed opportunities that I have in my career. I have many, many more that I'm sure I'll do videos for you guys on. But trust me when I say this, I did not have my greatest success in this business until I focused on one strategy and one strategy only and put all my effort into that strategy for a period of time. Today, do we do development? Yes. Do we do commercial buildings? Yes. Do I do lots of BRRRRs? Yes. Do I invest in other people's deals with private money? Yes. I do all these other investment strategies today. But at one point, I had to earn my stripes and focus on one strategy and get really freaking good at it so that I can continue to do that strategy, because I still flip houses, and add on to it with other strategies as I became better at this business. So hope that helped. Comment, like, subscribe. So you can follow me at Tarl Yarber on Instagram. And I hope to see you guys at the next video.